In a world where the strong devour the weak, he was just another victim. But he chose to defy its ways and shatter the very chains of destiny. He was thrown into countless battles against men and monstrous beings alike. Swept up in these events, he inherited a powerful legacy and began his path. Though his life was turned upside down time and again, he refused to back down. He declared that his will alone would shape reality, even against the heavens. But this grand story began in a much quieter, more humble place. Here, a young scholar struggles, his brow beaded with sweat. His name is Meng Hao, an ordinary scholar whose parents left when he was young. And from that day forward, he never heard from them again. With no one to rely on, Meng Hao dedicated his life to his studies. He sold his family home and took on crippling debt for a chance at a better life. But for 3 years he tried, and for 3 years he failed. Defeated, he was ready to give up when he found a man trapped at the bottom of a cliff. As he wondered what to do, the very mountain began to tremble. A blinding light shot out, striking him before he could react. From the light emerged a silver-haired woman, offering him a place among her sect. His world went dark, and he was pulled into the unknown. When he awoke, he was at the gates of an immortal cultivation sect. A new path had opened, and with it, a burning desire to seize his own destiny. Meng Hao's arrival doesn't go unnoticed, but the other disciples quickly lose interest. They see him as useless trash, not even worth the effort of robbing. But this anonymity suits him, giving him a few days of peace to settle in. He reflects on his cultivation, realizing his progress is far too slow on his own. Resources could speed things up, but he knows the weak are just prey for the strong in this sect. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out as disciples rush towards the central plaza. It's pill distribution day, a major event for everyone in the outer sect. A massive crowd gathers, buzzing with rumors of a special pill being distributed. And looking down from the stage, he sees a familiar face, the silver-haired woman who brought him here. Meanwhile, others whisper about a cruel twist. The pill is sealed, turning its recipient into a target for the entire sect. A booming voice suddenly silences the entire plaza. An elder named Shangguan Shu announces the distribution has begun. With a wave of his hand, he sends a stream of energy, delivering a spirit-condensing pill and a spirit stone to every disciple. Meng Hao examines his share, confirming the rumors of a 12-hour seal. But then, the elder reveals the main event, the legendary drought spirit pill. The crowd erupts, knowing this rare treasure will spark a bloodbath. Meng Hao, however, is perfectly content to stay out of the spotlight. But the elder clarifies the pill is a gift for a newly promoted disciple, and Meng Hao's world stops. A single priceless reward that will paint a target on someone's back. Meng Hao's mind screams in panic, the glowing pill in his hand feeling more like a curse than a gift. He looks around, only to see the hungry, predatory eyes of his fellow disciples fixed upon him. Instantly, he's swarmed from all sides, the crowd a chorus of threats and false promises. Every gaze in the plaza is locked onto him. A single shining prize in a sea of ravenous wolves. High above, another elder watches, believing Shangguan Shu has gone too far. He knows that giving such a treasure to a newcomer is nothing short of a death sentence. But his hands are tied by the sect's brutal traditions, where survival is a matter of fortune, not fairness. These rules were set in stone by the Patriarch himself, and no one dares to change them. But just as all hope seems lost, a single hand rises from the crowd, ready to speak. It's Meng Hao, who loudly declares his gratitude to the one who brought him to the sect, Senior Sister Shu. His sudden declaration catches Senior Sister Shu completely by surprise. He then bows deeply, offering the priceless pill as the only way to repay her grace. The crowd is stunned, realizing he's brilliantly shifted the target to someone untouchable. She glances at Elder Shangguan Shu for approval, and he gives a subtle nod. With the elder's blessing, she reaches out and gracefully accepts the cursed gift. As a reward, she offers him her own spirit-rich cave dwelling in the outer sect. Meng Hao is overjoyed, having turned a death sentence into a massive opportunity. And high above, the observing elder laughs, impressed that the newcomer already understands the true nature of the sect. He arrives at his new home, a secluded cave dwelling sealed by a massive stone door. Meng Hao holds up the jade slip given to him by Senior Sister Shu, believing it to be the key. As he presents the slip, it begins to glow with a brilliant light, and the stone doors grind open, releasing a wave of pure spiritual energy. Inside, he's stunned by the sheer abundance of power flowing through the chamber. He discovers a spirit spring, realizing this place is far more valuable than the pill he gave away. The next day dawns over the sect's mountains. After just one night of cultivation, Meng Hao feels his power has grown by months. Though he's drained the chamber's energy for now, he knows the spring will replenish it. With his cultivation on hold, he decides to pay a visit to an old acquaintance. As he walks, Meng Hao reflects on his newfound security and his plans for the future. Suddenly, a rustling from the nearby bushes catches his attention. He thinks of catching some wild game as a treat for his friend. With a target in mind, he leaps gracefully through the forest canopy. His thoughts turn to that friend, a cheerful boy named Li Fugui. The two of them were brought to the Reliance Sect at the same time. Though they started as mere acquaintances, a true bond of friendship quickly formed between them. Li Fugi even took on Meng Hao's chores, giving him precious time to study cultivation. But our boy knows his friend has a very peculiar secret. When hungry, he sleepwalks and bites things with impossibly strong teeth. He spots some movement in the bushes, deciding to catch a treat for his friend. And just like that, he snags a wild chicken, looking quite pleased with himself. But as he holds it, a strange energy begins to pulse from his chest. In a bizarre and messy flash, the chicken violently bursts apart in his hands. Meng Hao is left completely bewildered, wondering if he somehow caused the explosion. He feels a sudden warmth and pulls out a small bronze mirror he'd forgotten he had. Standing alone in the woods, he examines the mysterious object. His attention is then drawn to another potential meal, a small rabbit nearby. Curious, he decides to test a theory, aiming the mirror at the unsuspecting creature. The rabbit's reflection appears in the mirror, its eyes wide with sudden, inexplicable terror. And just like the chicken, the rabbit meets a sudden, messy end. Realizing he's stumbled upon something incredible, Meng Hao takes to the trees, a brilliant, if slightly terrifying idea forming in his mind. The forest soon echoes with a series of strange, violent pops. He stands over the results of his experiment, convinced this mirror is a priceless treasure. A treasure with a very, very specific and peculiar function. Back in the safety of his cave dwelling, Meng Hao begins to meticulously document his findings. He deduces that the mirror only works on creatures with fur, ignoring anything with scales, which means his next target will have to be something much, much bigger. He puts his theory to the test, unleashing the mirror's strange power on a massive demon beast. The creature meets the same messy end, proving that his new mirror is indeed a priceless treasure. He also notices the mirror seems cleaner, its rust fading with each use. From the beast, he retrieves a valuable second-layer demon core. Back in his cave, Meng Hao lays out all his worldly possessions. For a newcomer, he's already accumulated a small fortune. Now he faces a choice: consume the demon core or the spirit-condensing pill. Deciding to start with the sect-issued pill, he places the demon core aside for now. Without another moment's hesitation, he consumes the pill, and feels its spiritual energy dissolve and spread throughout his body. Next, he consumes the demon core, not wasting a single moment. But its raw power is far more than he ever expected. A violent surge of spiritual energy erupts within him, forcing him to fight through the pain and begin meditating. As he circulates his qi, dark tendrils of energy begin to rise from his body. He realizes he was careless. This power could tear him apart if he fails to control it. But he recognizes the dark smoke as impurities being purged from his system. This is a sign of a major breakthrough, a cleansing of his mortal form. The process leaves him completely drained, collapsing in exhaustion. He laments that demon beasts are so rare, knowing his mirror could provide an endless supply of these cores. But when he finally recovers, he finds something impossible sitting on his mirror. A second demon core has appeared out of nowhere while his spirit stone is gone. The truth dawns on him. The mirror absorbed the stone's energy to duplicate the core. This isn't just a treasure. It's a miracle, a tool that can create endless resources. But he pushes aside his questions, realizing his biggest problem is a lack of spirit stones to fuel it. Even as a cultivator, he's still trapped by the same poverty that haunted his mortal life. A dangerous glint appears in his eyes as an old saying comes to mind. Fortune favors the bold. With his path forward unclear, he consumes the duplicated demon core, unleashing another torrent of pure, untamed energy through his body. He thinks back to the wolf beast he hunted, the first step on this unexpected journey. He tries to justify his actions, telling himself he was provoked and only fought back. But he knows the truth. He took a life. And in this sect, that was simply the price of survival. Shaking off the dark thoughts, he turns his attention to the spoils of his victory. His eyes widen in absolute shock at the contents of the pouch. Spread before him is a small fortune in spirit stones, pills, and a sharp, well-crafted sword. He also finds a strange bone fragment inscribed with a forbidden technique. With all these new spirit stones, he decides it's time to test the mirror's true potential. He carefully places the mysterious bronze mirror on the table. First, he sets the precious demon core directly onto its surface. Then he adds a fragment of a spirit stone, hoping his theory about duplication is correct. He waits, but after some time, nothing happens, and he begins to doubt his own theory. Unwilling to give up, he decides to try again, this time with a complete spirit stone. He carefully places the stone onto the mirror's surface, which ripples and consumes the stone in a flash of brilliant light. Menghao can only watch in stunned silence as the artifact activates. And just like that, the demon core is perfectly duplicated. It worked. The mirror truly is a mystical treasure beyond his wildest dreams. He spent nearly all his spirit stones, but in return he now has 4 priceless demon cores. Each one contains a terrifying amount of raw, untamed power. And without a moment's hesitation, he begins to consume them all. The raw power of the demon cores floods his mind with terrifying visions. He's overwhelmed by a sea of chaotic energy, a storm raging within his very soul. But by the next morning, he has tamed that storm and is ready to test his new strength. With a single thought, he summons a massive fire serpent, a testament to his incredible breakthrough. He's reached the peak of the 3rd layer, making him one of the strongest disciples in the outer sect. Realizing the sect's pills are now useless to him, he decides to share his good fortune with his friend, Li Fugi. And so, he sets off through the mountains to find him. But he arrives to find his friend in a blind rage, accusing someone of a terrible crime. A crime that turns out to be the theft of his steamed buns. Menghao can only watch in confusion as Li Fugi takes out his frustration on an innocent tree. The axe from his tantrum falls harmlessly to the ground. And with that, Li Fugi collapses completely spent. He lies there, sleep-talking about stolen buns and a stolen wife, much to Menghao's bewilderment. Menghao notices his friend's teeth have grown unnaturally long and sharp, a strange side effect of his cultivation. Suddenly, Li Fugi's eyes snap open. He sits up, dazed, with only one thing on his mind: the taste of wild chicken. A short while later, the two friends are reunited over a campfire, cooking the very meal Li Fugui dreamed of. His friend complains about the lack of wild game, claiming he helped Menghao for months, a fact our boy knows is only true in his dreams. Li Fugi laments his lack of progress, explaining that instead of spiritual energy, he's only managed to grow his teeth. To help him, Menghao offers one of his precious spirit-condensing pills, a gesture that leaves his friend speechless. After saying his goodbyes, Menghao continues his journey up the winding mountain path. But as he walks, he notices a strange mist gathering around his feet. Ahead, he overhears a group of disciples fawning over a prominent figure, a senior brother Wang, for whom a special promotion trial is being held. Though they praise him as the future number 1, he humbly tells them to stop. But a subtle nod reveals his true, confident nature. Hidden from view, Menghao quietly takes in the scene. His eyes are sharp, analyzing every detail of the exchange. He then notices their feet, floating just above the ground. He recognizes the man as Wang Tengfei, using a technique only 5th-layer cultivators can master. He wonders when he'll reach the 5th layer, knowing he first needs a way to earn more spirit stones. With a new goal in mind, he continues his journey through the Sect's territory. He soon arrives at the low-level public zone, a place he was once too weak to even approach. But a sudden cry for help immediately puts him on high alert. Nearby, one disciple brutally strikes down another in a violent robbery. Menghao instinctively hides, even though he knows he's likely stronger than the attacker. He weighs the risks of this chaotic place, realizing that fighting for resources could easily get him injured. But then, a much safer and more brilliant idea begins to form in his mind. He makes his way to the sect's pill cultivation workshop with a newfound purpose. His plan is simple: to trade the pills he no longer needs for a fortune in spirit stones. He stands before the workshop, his mind set on a new kind of hustle. The next day, he makes his way to the low-level public zone, a chaotic marketplace for weaker disciples. With a confident smile and a makeshift stall, Menghao is ready to start doing business. But just as he arrives, a brutal fight breaks out between 2 other disciples. One of them is struck down, his shoulder torn open by a vicious slash. The attacker smirks, promising his victim that this day will be his last. But a calm voice suddenly cuts through the tension, calling for their attention. It's Menghao, who has set up shop nearby, offering premium healing pills to the wounded man. He cheerfully advertises his wares, offering a single pill for the price of 1 spirit stone. Both disciples are left speechless, accusing him of being an even bigger robber than they are. He pitches his pill as the key to victory, urging the wounded man to buy it and even the odds. The desperate disciple tosses him a spirit stone, and Menghao flicks the pill in return. The pill strikes the man's shoulder with pinpoint accuracy, and in a matter of seconds, the deep gash begins to close and heal completely. With a satisfied smile, Menghao thanks his first customer for their patronage. The attacker, however, is enraged, believing the two are now mocking him. But his opponent is back on his feet, ready for round 2. He easily dodges the next strike, his strength and confidence fully restored. The tables have turned, leaving the original attacker clutching a fresh wound of his own. Seizing the moment, Meng Hao approaches the newly injured disciple with another business proposition. The furious attacker demands to know why Meng Hao is helping his enemy, but our boy simply calls it a business transaction. As the fight resumes, Meng Hao casually tells them to call him if they need anything else. He then begins to patrol the area, offering his miracle pills to any disciple he comes across. He even tries to sell to 2 disciples who are already down, promising them an absolute advantage. With his banner held high, he advertises his pill cultivation workshop branch, promising honest prices. But his mind is already on a bigger plan, to monopolize the entire healing pill market. Suddenly, an enraged disciple lunges at him, seeking revenge for his earlier interference. But the man's attack stops dead, his face a mask of pure shock. Meng Hao stands over his defeated opponent, explaining that he only dares to sell here because he knows no one can touch him. He then takes the man's pouch, calmly advising him that buying a pill would have been a smaller loss. He counts his earnings from the day's work, a respectable pile of 53 spirit stones. A realization dawns on him. This is far more profitable and safer than simply robbing people. He then examines a strange pink pill, recognizing it as a rare and expensive beauty-preserving elixir. But his thoughts are interrupted by a shadowy figure appearing at the entrance of his cave. Meng Hao turns, his senses on high alert. The visitor is none other than Senior Sister Shu, the very person who gave him this dwelling. He immediately bows, offering a respectful greeting to his benefactor. She takes a moment to survey the cave, her expression unreadable. After a brief inspection, she gives a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. Meng Hao smiles, relieved, and invites her to stay for a while. But she declines his offer, explaining she's entering closed-door cultivation and was just checking in. As she departs, Meng Hao is left alone with his thoughts, and the words of the Patriarch, promising wealth to those who join the sect. But a moment later, he's sprinting out of the cave. He quickly catches up to Senior Sister Shu, calling out her name to stop her. He presents the rare beauty pill, claiming he saved up everything just to acquire this gift for her. She looks at him with a cold, unreadable expression, but she accepts the gift, allowing him to place it in her hand. She then sternly advises him to focus on cultivation, not on wasting precious resources. Meng Hao bows his head humbly, feigning innocence and simply expressing his gratitude. In return for his gift, she offers him a protective magical treasure. He quickly offers to escort her, hoping to be seen with his powerful new backer. She eyes him with a hint of suspicion, seeing through his simple act. But she agrees, and the two of them set off down the mountain path. Their silhouettes move through the vast landscape of the sect. And high above, the same elder watches their exchange with a satisfied smile. He notes that Meng Hao has already mastered the sect's most important rule: secure a powerful backer. Meanwhile, word of Meng Hao's recent exploits has already begun to spread. They can't believe a newcomer could defeat a veteran disciple like Cao Yang. But the gossiping disciple reveals the secret to his success. He was seen walking with Senior Sister Shu herself. Others argue that Senior Sister Shu is famously cold and distant, never showing favor to anyone. But they have to admit that Meng Hao's ability to secure her protection is a sign of his impressive cunning. The group can only hang their heads in envy, wishing they had such a powerful backer. Meanwhile, the defeated Cao Yang seeks an audience with a senior brother Lu, his face a mask of grim determination. He bows low, reporting that he was robbed by Meng Hao, who is now running a business selling pills on Flat Top Mountain. Cao Yang paints Meng Hao as a villain, claiming his actions have caused widespread outrage among the disciples. A voice from within acknowledges his report and dismisses him without another word. As he leaves, the voice coldly reminds him that in the sect there are no cousins, only superiors and inferiors. Inside sits Lu Hong, the #1 disciple among the lower levels, intrigued by this creative new business venture. He considers Meng Hao's plan brilliant, a far more elegant way to acquire wealth than simply robbing the weak. The next day, Meng Hao returns to find his business idea has already been stolen. He watches the new competition with a look of pure annoyance, but for now he decides to simply observe from a distance. He reasons that anyone this bold must be powerful, making it wise to avoid a direct conflict. Suddenly, the copycat is challenged by another disciple, and a fierce battle breaks out. The fight is short and brutal, with the copycat quickly taking a serious injury, and in the next moment, he's struck down by a decisive blow. Seizing the opportunity, Meng Hao approaches the victor with his signature sales pitch. Both the winner and the loser are left completely stunned by his audacity. But the victor, none other than Lu Hong, simply pays for the pill, intrigued by the newcomer's hustle. By midday, Meng Hao's business has taken a noticeable downturn. He looks at his meager earnings, disappointed by the slow morning. Lu Hong, however, is counting a small fortune, impressed by the business model. But his admiration is tainted by a dark resolve to eliminate the competition. The next day, Lu Hong has taken over the market, turning Meng Hao's hustle into blatant extortion. With no customers left, Meng Hao can only rest, refusing to stoop to his rival's level. By the fourth day, Lu Hong's patience has worn completely thin. He delivers a final, chilling warning: get out or be crippled. But on the fifth day, Meng Hao isn't running a business. He's blocking the entire zone. Other disciples can only watch in disbelief, certain that the newcomer has just signed his own death warrant. A heavy footstep announces the arrival of his rival. The onlookers whisper as senior brother Lu finally appears. But Meng Hao isn't preparing for a fight. He's on his knees in a deep, formal bow. The crowd is stunned, wondering if this is some kind of challenge. Lu Hong sees it as an insult, drawing his blade and calling it a death wish. The disciples recognize the legendary Purple Sun Sword, a reward for his past achievements. With a confident smirk, he rushes forward to strike Meng Hao down. The blade descends, aimed to finish the newcomer once and for all, but it shatters against an unseen force just inches from its target. The backlash sends a violent shock through Lu Hong, who coughs up blood in disbelief. Lu Hong stares up in disbelief, realizing Meng Hao is at the fourth layer of qi condensation. Meng Hao calmly confirms his suspicion, revealing he made a breakthrough just last night. He thinks back to his frustration, how his rival stole his business and then threatened to cripple him. With no demon cores left, he had to rely on his saved-up spirit stones and pills. He knew the pills were weak, but hoped that quantity could make up for quality. And so, he consumed every last one in a desperate bid for more power. The combined energy erupted within him, a torrent of raw spiritual force. He'd tried to be peaceful, but his rival's constant provocations had pushed him too far. Now, standing over his defeated opponent, he asks if he still wants to continue the fight. The crowd erupts in disbelief, realizing the newcomer's true strength and the genius of his plan. But Lu Hong simply scoffs, refusing to back down even when faced with a superior foe. In a last-ditch effort, he hurls the broken half of his sword like a projectile. But Meng Hao catches the blade effortlessly between two fingers and shatters it with a simple flex of his power. Lu Hong stumbles back, mocking Meng Hao's lack of a proper weapon. But our boy simply clenches his fist, ready to reveal another ace up his sleeve. With a single gesture, he summons an entire arsenal of flying swords to his side. He reveals his mirror can duplicate weapons, promising to bury his rival in a sea of steel. The blades descend in a silver torrent, forcing Lu Hong into a desperate defense. His prized Purple Sun Sword is instantly overwhelmed, shattering against the relentless assault. The crowd can only stare in shock, unable to believe what they've just witnessed. Meng Hao calmly asks if his rival has any more of his special swords left to break. Enraged, Lu Hong declares that Meng Hao has forced him to use his final resort. The other disciples sense the danger and immediately begin to flee the area. He unleashes a powerful magical treasure, a gourd that projects a massive energy shield. He reveals it's a gift from the powerful Wang Tengfei, vowing to end Meng Hao for this insult. The gourd then unleashes a devastating beam of pure spiritual energy. Its power is so immense that the onlookers are thrown back by the shockwave. But Meng Hao stands his ground, protected by the treasure senior sister Shu gave him. The jade pendant glows brightly, but begins to crack under the immense pressure. Meng Hao clutches the cracked pendant, realizing that without senior sister Shu's gift, he would be dead. Lu Hong can only stare in disbelief, his ultimate attack completely nullified. Before he can recover, Meng Hao lunges forward and snatches the gourd right out of his hands. With a single brutal stomp, he brings his rival crashing to the ground. Meng Hao examines his prize, wondering what kind of power this small treasure holds. Weakened by the backlash, Lu Hong can only issue empty threats, warning that the gourd belongs to Wang Tengfei. He reminds Meng Hao that killing him here is forbidden, but our boy has no intention of breaking the rules. Instead, he promises to deliver the same fate Lu Hong had planned for him: a crippled cultivation. The defeated disciple can only look on in terror as his fate is sealed. Back in the solitude of his cave dwelling, Meng Hao reflects on the battle, knowing he had no other choice. He realizes this conflict was inevitable from the moment he chose to fight back. Now he's left with the jade gourd, a treasure too dangerous to keep. With senior sister Shu in seclusion, he has no one to turn to for help. His only option seems to be returning it directly to the powerful Wang Tengfei. But before he can act, a messenger arrives with a command from that very man. Meng Hao is surprised they've come for him so soon, but he refuses to open his doors. The arrogant disciple outside simply scoffs at his defiance and delivers Wang Tengfei's brutal verdict, a fate far worse than death. Meng Hao's blood runs cold as the messenger declares he's no longer a disciple of the sect. He questions how a single disciple's command could possibly override the sect's official rules. But the messenger clarifies that in this sect, Wang Tengfei's word is the rule and demands a public apology. With the ultimatum delivered, the messenger turns and leaves Meng Hao to his fate. Night falls, leaving our boy alone in the darkness with his impossible choice. His mind races in a panic, trapped with no good options and no way out. He sits in silence, the weight of his situation pressing down on him. But after a long moment, he finally rises to his feet, a decision made. He walks to the door, wondering if fleeing the sect is his only path to survival. But the cold, unmoving stone is a stark reminder that he is well and truly trapped. The next day, Meng Hao emerges from his cave, his face set with grim resolve. The messenger, Shangguan Song, is waiting for him, impressed that he didn't try to flee. He remarks that Meng Hao is too proud to bear the name of a sect traitor. He then suggests that if Meng Hao begs properly, Wang Tengfei might only take one of his arms. Meng Hao's eyes burn with a silent, defiant fury. He follows the messenger up a long flight of stairs, heading towards his judgment. At the top, a crowd has already gathered, all fawning over the powerful Wang Tengfei. They shower him with praise and requests for guidance, which he graciously accepts. He even offers to let another disciple borrow his pills, cementing his image as a generous leader. But a single, cold glance reveals the true power and authority he wields over them all. With a condescending smile, Wang Tengfei holds out his hand, demanding the gourd. But Meng Hao stands his ground, his expression hidden in shadow. His eyes, however, burn with a cold, unyielding defiance. He reminds them of the sect's own rule: what is seized belongs to the victor. But Wang Tengfei simply scoffs, declaring that what is his can never truly be taken. With a single dismissive gesture, he unleashes a wave of power that slams into Meng Hao, sending him hurtling backwards. But our boy braces himself, summoning a glowing green shield to absorb the blow. Wang Tengfei's calm expression finally cracks, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He looks down to see his own finger is bleeding from the backlash of his attack. The green shield explodes into 1,000 glittering shards. The force of the impact sends a shockwave across the platform. Meng Hao can only watch as the last of his protection fades away. He realizes the jade pendant from senior sister Shu has been completely destroyed. Unimpressed, Wang Tengfei unleashes another, far more serious attack. White tendrils of energy erupt, binding Meng Hao completely. The gourd is ripped from his grasp by the same unseen force and flies back into Wang Tengfei's hand as he repeats his ultimatum. The tendrils tighten, constricting Meng Hao's legs, threatening to sever his limbs and end his journey as a cultivator. The tendrils tighten, threatening to crush his arm and his future. But Wang Tengfei changes his mind, deciding instead to expel him from the sect entirely. A brutal impact echoes across the plaza. As Meng Hao is thrown to the ground, his body broken and his spirit crushed. But just as all hope seems lost, a powerful elder intervenes, telling Wang Tengfei to stand down. The arrogant disciple reluctantly agrees, showing deference to the elder's authority. With the conflict resolved, Wang Tengfei turns and walks away, leaving Meng Hao defeated on the cold stone. Meng Hao can only lie there, battered and humiliated, his world once again turned upside down. The other disciples look on with a mixture of scorn and satisfaction, and the elder who saved him looks on with a grim, unreadable expression. He struggles to push himself up, every muscle screaming in protest. With the eyes of the sect upon him, he forces himself to stand, clutching his wounded arm. He makes the long, lonely walk back down the stairs, his pride in tatters. Meng Hao finally reaches the familiar stone door of his cave dwelling. He stumbles through the entrance, his strength finally giving out, and collapses onto the cold, hard floor of his sanctuary. Lying there broken and alone, the darkness of the cave seems to swallow him whole. But a moment later, a figure quietly enters his secluded home. It's senior sister Shu, who finds him unconscious and bleeding on the floor. She reveals she just emerged from her seclusion, only to find her protege in this state. She warns him that Wang Tengfei has an extraordinary background, hailing from far beyond their country. His cultivation has already reached the 6th layer, and he's been personally chosen for the inner sect. In short, she tells him, this is a man he must never provoke again. But she offers him a lifeline, a jade slip he can crush if he's ever in danger again, Weakly, he thanks her, then asks how long it would take for someone like him to reach the 7th layer. She tells him it could take anywhere from 10 to 60 years, a grim reality for someone with his talent. With that, she advises him to focus on his cultivation and departs. As a final note, she mentions that one of his old companions has also been promoted. She tells him to heal up and then officially join the outer sect. Left alone once more, Meng Hao slowly begins to sit up, his body still aching from the fight. His clothes are torn, his body battered, but his spirit remains unbroken as he returns to his studies. He reads the words of the Patriarch, a promise of protection for those in the sect. But Meng Hao knows that in this world, such promises are hollow. With a grim determination, he decides to write his own rule, declaring that the only backer he will ever rely on is himself. A few days pass and the sect's mountains seem peaceful once more. Meng Hao has recovered, his appearance clean and his resolve hardened. He sets off to officially register as an outer sect disciple, as senior sister Shu advised. But he's greeted by a familiar, cheerful face. His old friend Li Fugi, who is being celebrated for his promotion to the inner sect. Li Fugi waves a cheerful goodbye, while the other disciples practically beg him to never return. Meng Hao can only watch the strange exchange in complete confusion. His friend explains that all his former roommates were timid and had nightmares, completely oblivious to the real reason they fled. Li Fugi then runs over, excited to show off a new treasure he's acquired. Meng Hao examines the simple short sword, wondering what makes it so special. It turns out to be a tool for grinding down his ever-growing spirit teeth. Meng Hao realizes his friend's unique talent is literally his mouthful of powerful teeth. He offers to let Li Fugi live with him, but his friend politely declines, preferring his privacy. Our boy decides it's for the best, keeping the secret of his mirror safe as they part ways. He then sits alone watching his friend head off as he contemplates his own path forward. He proposes a business partnership, asking his friend to sell pills for him inside the secti. With his plans in motion, time passes, and the seasons begin to change. Meng Hao spends his days in quiet cultivation, steadily growing stronger. Autumn turns to winter, but his dedication to his training never wavers. One day, his meditation is interrupted by a frantic Li Fugi. He turns to see what has his friend so worked up, and finds a young boy bowing respectfully before him. The boy explains that he and a few others were captured and brought to the sect together. But when asked about their 4th companion, his face falls as he delivers grim news. He recounts how the boy was blown from a cliff and devoured by wild beasts, a tragic end to a young life. Li Fugi tries to comfort the boy, offering him a place under their protection. But the young disciple politely declines, thanking them before turning to leave. He then walks off alone, a solitary figure disappearing into the snowy woods. Meng Hao and his friend can only watch, confused by the boy's strange independence. Meng Hao suspects the boy has his own secrets, a hidden strength that allows him to survive alone. Sometime later, a massive crowd gathers as rumors fly about the death of a grand elder and the sect's decline. Meng Hao tries to confirm the elder's identity, but Li Fugi is too busy grinding his teeth to be of any help. When asked about his own progress, Meng Hao simply claims he's hit a bottleneck in his cultivation. He wonders if consuming so many demon cores has caused this plateau, knowing he'll need rare resources to break through. As Li Fugi offers to buy him more pills, their attention is drawn to the stage where Elder Shangguanshu has appeared. Elder Shangguanshu holds up a single glowing pill for all to see. Meng Hao's eyes widen in stunned recognition. It's another legendary drought spirit pill. The crowd erupts in a frenzy, knowing only one is made each year. Meng Hao's mind races, realizing this pill could be the key to his breakthrough. The elder silences the crowd and begins a grand speech about his time overseeing these events. In the crowd, Wang Tengfei stands apart, a picture of calm confidence. The elder declares that he has always favored the newest disciples, believing their success is the key to the sect's future prosperity. Meanwhile, Li Fugi is completely oblivious, busy grinding his teeth on his new sword. With a single gesture, the elder declares the pill's recipient, and sends the priceless treasure flying right into Li Fugi's hands. His friend can only stare in horror, wondering why he's been cursed with this gift. He turns to Meng Hao, begging for help, knowing this treasure is a death sentence. Instantly, the crowd's attention shifts, their gazes turning predatory. A sea of hungry eyes locks onto the new, unsuspecting target. In a panic, Li Fugi shoves the pill into Meng Hao's hand. Meng Hao grabs him, offering the safety of his cave in exchange for the pill. But the mob descends upon them, undeterred by Meng Hao's reputation. The two friends are sent tumbling down the long flight of stairs, overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers. Li Fugi points a trembling finger, screaming that Meng Hao has stolen his pill. The mob immediately changes targets, swarming up the stairs after their new prize. But Li Fugi can only watch in horror, realizing he's just thrown his friend to the wolves. Meng Hao's mind is clear. Survive 12 hours, and this pill will be his ticket to the 5th layer. He sprints for the desolate mountains, a place he knows better than any of his pursuers. But with 5th layer cultivators on his tail, he's forced to enter the forbidden Black Mountain. He smirks, knowing this cursed land is the perfect hunting ground for his mysterious mirror. The other disciples can only stare in disbelief, certain he's just signed his own death warrant. But their greed wins out and they follow, desperate to retrieve the pill before a beast does. As they reach the edge of the dark forest, their eyes catch a strange sight in the distance. It's a powerful demon beast, left in a messy state on the forest floor. His pursuers are stunned, realizing he not only killed it, but also had time to take its core. They find more bodies, unable to believe he could have done all this alone and so quickly. One of them reconsiders Meng Hao's true strength, wondering if he was always this powerful. The two 5th layer cultivators agree that this is too dangerous a place to linger, but one sees the other as his true rival, determined to get the pill first. Without another word, the two strongest disciples leap ahead of the pack. But Meng Hao is already prepared, his mysterious mirror at the ready. He aims it at a new group of beasts, who scatter in pure terror. He realizes he doesn't need to kill them, he can just scare them off to cover his escape. With a sharp look, he dodges a volley of swords sent by his pursuers. He then flips through the air, his movements fluid and precise. Meng Hao sends one of his own blades shooting forward along the ground, and lands perfectly on its flat surface. He uses the momentum to slide across the terrain, creating a makeshift escape. His pursuers are stunned, mistaking his clever trick for the legendary sword flight. He repeats the maneuver, staying just ahead of their attacks. They realize he invented the technique on the spot, but believe it's a foolish waste of energy. But Meng Hao knows his limits and consumes a pill to replenish his dwindling power. He knows that even reaching the 5th layer won't be enough to protect him from Wang Tengfei. One of the 5th layer cultivators lunges from above, unleashing a fire serpent technique. The other makes a false promise of mercy before sending his own blade flying forward. Meng Hao flees as the massive fire serpent closes in from behind. But he counters by summoning 10 flying swords, stunning his pursuers with his apparent wealth. With a single command, he prepares to detonate his entire arsenal. The swords erupt in a massive explosion, catching one of the disciples completely off guard. They realize he's not just powerful but wealthy, making his storage pouch an even greater prize. For the next half hour, the forest is rocked by a series of massive explosions. An hour passes, and the light from the sealed pill still shines, guiding his pursuers. But as time wears on, the explosions grow weaker, a sign that his resources are running low. His pursuers can't believe how many swords he's detonated, wondering where he got such wealth. They also notice something strange. The demon beasts seem to be ignoring Meng Hao completely. Instead, a ferocious wolf-like creature lunges directly at one of them. He struggles against the beast, realizing in frustration that they've become the primary targets. The two are forced to fight off a swarm of monsters, deciding to clear them out before resuming the chase. Meanwhile, Meng Hao knows the beasts are his allies here, but he must keep his mirror a secret. He watches a massive beast tide stampede through the forest, realizing he can't control them all at once. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoes from deep within the cursed mountain. Meng Hao freezes, recognizing the sound of something far more powerful than a simple beast. And looking up, he finds himself surrounded by shadowy creatures with glowing, predatory eyes. The bronze mirror in his robe begins to pulse with a strange light. It attracts the attention of a massive, ape-like demon beast. He realizes he's drawn an entire pack of them, likely because of their thick fur. These creatures are as strong as 5th layer cultivators, and the mirror didn't scare them away. But instead of panic, a brilliant, dangerous idea begins to form in his mind. Elsewhere, his pursuers are already struggling against the mountain's native beasts. One of them considers retreating, knowing the odds are stacked against him. But it's too late, as Meng Hao leads his new, furry army right towards them. He runs past the stunned disciples, announcing he's brought them a gift. Then he unleashes a volley of swords, commanding them to explode and seal their fate. The explosion engulfs one of the disciples, who screams in rage at Meng Hao's underhanded tactics, but Meng Hao simply runs on, confident the beast will weaken his pursuers for him. He's surprised, however, to see the two 5th layer cultivators have already caught up. Knowing he's outmatched, he decides to venture deeper into the cursed mountain to even the odds. As night falls, the chase continues under the light of a full moon, and with the darkness comes the roar of even more ferocious beasts. His pursuers are forced to fight for their lives, realizing the entire mountain has gone berserk. They suspect Meng Hao is using some unknown art to agitate the beasts and turn them against everyone else. But greed overrules caution, and the stronger of the two vows to claim the pill no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Meng Hao continues his desperate flight through the darkened woods, but his flight is cut short as he spots something impossible in the distance. He sees a massive serpentine body, covered in thick, dark scales. A colossal python emerges from a cave deep within the mountain. Its eyes glow with a primal power as it hisses into the night. Meng Hao notices the creature seems to be in tremendous pain, and realizes it's in the middle of shedding its skin. The beast lets out a deafening roar of pure agony. He recognizes the sound, realizing this creature's pain is what caused the entire beasttide. And he knows that for a creature this powerful, its moment of weakness is his greatest opportunity. The sheer force of its cry injures him internally, forcing him to spit up blood. He realizes the beast's power is immense, far surpassing even senior sister Shu. Knowing he can't stay, he turns to flee, but something catches his eye. It's a massive flying sword, embedded deep within the creature's scaly hide. He notes the blade is ancient, having fused with the beast over countless years. The thought of such a treasure is tempting, but he quickly shakes it off, knowing the risk is too great. Deciding that survival is more important, he sprints away from the dangerous scene. Several hours pass and his pursuers finally catch up, finding him meditating on a rock. They mock him, assuming he's finally exhausted and has nowhere left to run. But Meng Hao calmly consumes a recovery pill, explaining he was just taking a short break. His pursuers are completely spent, their own supply of recovery pills now empty. One of them screams in frustration, demanding Meng Hao stop his cowardly tactics and face them in a fair fight. But Meng Hao calmly explains that he's outmatched and has no choice but to use the mountain's dangers to his advantage. He then reminds them that the 12-hour seal is almost up, and once he breaks through, he'll gladly give them the battle they want. The two disciples are left speechless, their threats turning to frustrated silence. Finally, the calmer of the two decides to cut his losses, turning to leave with a final warning. He tries to save face, claiming he only ever wanted the pill, not Meng Hao's life. With a final defeated gesture, he even congratulates our boy on his impending breakthrough. Meng Hao watches as his last two pursuers finally give up the chase and disappear into the woods. With the danger finally past, he collapses in sheer exhaustion, the long, desperate flight finally over. Half an hour later, the final pulse of light fades from the sky. He looks at the pill in his hand, a wave of relief washing over him as the seal finally breaks. With the prize secured, he turns to his greatest treasure, the mysterious bronze mirror. He lays out all his worldly possessions, knowing the mirror will demand a heavy price for such a rare item. But the result is beyond his wildest dreams. 10 priceless pills, a fortune created in an instant. With this new arsenal, he knows his goal of reaching the 5th layer is finally within his grasp. Elsewhere, Wang Tengfei looks out over the Sect, reflecting on the years he spent waiting for this very day. He recalls an ancient legend of a dragon that fell in Black Mountain 2 centuries ago. He believes his destiny is tied to this place, a stepping stone to even greater power. A subordinate arrives to report that their plans are nearly complete, with allies from other sects already in position. He explains to his subordinate that he's gambled everything on this moment, when the python is at its weakest. Wang Tengfei declares with absolute confidence that he has never failed, ever since a mysterious drop of blood fell from the sky and marked him as a child. That single drop gave him an ancient inheritance, leading him to the secret of the dragon's corpse. And now, he declares, they will head to Black Mountain at dawn to claim his prize. Meanwhile, Meng Hao begins to consume his own priceless treasures, one after another, in a desperate bid for a breakthrough. He pushes his body to its absolute limit, absorbing the immense power. The energy sends him into a deep trance, his consciousness floating in a sea of light. He looks down to find a vast landscape, realizing he's witnessing the world inside his own body. He recognizes this internal sea as a pill lake, a sign he's finally reached the 5th layer. He steps into this new power, the first major milestone on his long journey. From this moment on, his mortal body is gone, replaced by a true spiritual foundation. With this breakthrough, he can finally master the windwalking technique, a massive leap in power. But he knows the pills have their limits and wonders if he has enough to reach the next level. Suddenly, his meditation is shattered by a familiar, terrifying sound. It's the cry of the giant python, now filled with rage and a hint of terror. He arrives to find a full-scale assault, with cultivators swarming the massive beast. And leading the charge is none other than his rival, Wang Tengfei. The arrogant disciple smirks, his eyes glowing as he prepares to claim his prize. A volley of glowing swords rains down upon the massive beast, but they shatter harmlessly against its impenetrable scales. The cultivators press their attack, a coordinated assault from all sides. Menghao watches from the shadows, realizing Wang Tengfei has brought in powerful allies from other sects. The colossal python thrashes wildly, its rage shaking the very mountain. He can't help but cheer for the beast, hoping it will take care of his rival for him. But Wang Tengfei remains unfazed, calmly ordering his forces to form a magical array. Lines of brilliant energy begin to trace across the night sky, weaving together into a complex and powerful formation. A massive seal of crackling energy forms above, ready to trap the weakened beast. The colossal beast lets out a defiant roar, its cry crackling with raw, untamed lightning. From its very essence, a spectral dragon of pure energy begins to take shape. But Wang Tengfei simply watches, his expression one of absolute, unwavering confidence. The phantom dragon flickers for a moment before dissipating into nothing. His allies realize the beast is too weak to sustain its most powerful attacks. In desperation, the python unleashes a torrent of freezing frost from its jaws. The icy blast slams into the mountainside, a testament to its remaining power. But its silhouette reveals the truth. It's still shedding its skin, still vulnerable. The cultivators swarm around the beast, a relentless assault against a weakened giant. Finally, the python coughs up a spray of blood, a sign that its strength is failing. Wang Tengfei warns his allies as the beast finally sheds its skin, certain that victory is at hand. He smirks, believing the supreme treasure he sought for so long is finally within his grasp. But Meng Hao watches in shock as the newly freed python takes to the air. He realizes the ancient sword is no longer embedded in the creature's body. A brilliant deduction dawns on him. The blade is still stuck in the discarded skin, a priceless treasure for the taking. He makes a silent vow to his rival, promising that one day he will stand before him as an equal. With that thought, Meng Hao sprints into action, his mind set on a new prize. Wang Tengfei also leads the charge, urging his forces to claim the shed skin. He quickly disappears into a narrow passage in the mountainside. Inside, he races through the tight crevice, desperate to reach the treasure first. But Meng Hao is right behind him, his eyes burning with a desperate resolve. He pushes himself to the limit, knowing this is a race he cannot afford to lose. But it's too late. Wang Tengfei and his allies have already reached the massive, discarded skin. Undeterred, Meng Hao scales the treacherous cliffs, seeking another way in. Wang Tengfei navigates the narrow passage with a confident smirk. He arrives at his destination, sensing he's finally found what he's been looking for. Before him lies the true prize, the ancient, perfectly preserved body of a Ying dragon. He explains that this was the only moment the cave was safe to enter, a moment he's waited years for. He recounts his long quest, guided by the inherited blood to this very spot, vowing to claim the supreme treasure. But his triumph turns to disbelief as he realizes the dragon's storage pouch is missing. He frantically searches, certain the treasure should be embedded in the shed skin. He calls upon his inherited blood, trying to sense the location of his prize. The ancient power responds, giving him a sudden, violent vision. He sees the supreme treasure being used to strike the dragon's corpse, and finds a fresh wound, realizing someone has already taken the demon core. With a roar of pure fury, he bursts from the cave to hunt down the thief. His voice echoes through the night, demanding to know who stole his destiny. His rage manifests as a storm of pure, untamed spiritual energy. He screams that no one dares to steal from the future legend of the cultivation world. And elsewhere, Meng Hao can only grin, knowing he's just hit the jackpot. With his rival's furious shouts echoing behind him, he pushes himself to escape. He finally makes it back to the safety of his cave, collapsing in utter exhaustion. But his first thought is of the prize he risked everything for, a golden storage pouch. He recalls finding it on the body of a long-dead cultivator, a powerful figure from another era. With trembling hands, he opens the pouch to inspect its contents. His curious expression quickly turns to one of pure, unadulterated shock. He reaches inside, his fingers brushing against an untold fortune. He pulls out a spirit stone unlike any he's ever seen, dense with swirling spiritual energy. The sheer amount inside leaves him breathless, realizing his mirror can now create treasures beyond imagination. But first he finds a simple set of clothes, the belongings of a long-forgotten cultivator. He then turns his attention to the demon core, wondering if his mirror can duplicate such a powerful treasure. But the bronze mirror begins to glow with an unusual intensity, and suddenly rips itself from his grasp with a mind of its own. It flies through the air, locking onto the priceless demon core. And instead of duplicating it, the mirror smashes right into the core, shattering the priceless treasure into 1,000 useless pieces. Meng Hao can only watch in horror, desperately trying to call his rogue treasure back. He picks up a fragment, confused by the mirror's strange behavior, until he notices a crack in the core's surface. Peeling back the outer layer, he uncovers a brilliant, blood-red orb hidden within. A wave of pure, untamed spiritual energy washes over him, far greater than anything he's ever felt before. He then pulls out another treasure, a simple wooden sword pulsing with an ancient power. Though it looks plain, he can feel its incredible sharpness, realizing it's a priceless artifact. He's stunned to see it's already absorbing the energy from his spirit spring. Curious, he tests it with one of his new spirit stones, and watches as the blade greedily drinks its power. A brilliant, ruthless idea forms. In battle, this sword could drain his opponent's very life force. But his excitement turns to panic as he feels the bronze mirror begin to stir, reacting to the sword. With a new plan in mind, he lays both treasures on the floor. He places the ancient sword onto the mirror's surface, ready to attempt the impossible. With his fortune of spirit stones, he prepares to duplicate a weapon for the very first time. He drops a handful of spirit stones, which are instantly consumed by the mirror. Meng Hao panics, realizing the mirror is devouring the fortune he risked his life for. He tries to calm down, wondering if the duplication process has already begun. To test this, he carefully places another spirit stone onto the mirror's surface, but it too is instantly swallowed without a trace. His frustration boils over, realizing this treasure is a bottomless pit for his wealth. But his anger turns to grim determination as he decides to see who will break first. He begins feeding it stone after stone, his entire fortune draining away in a desperate gamble. He realizes he's trapped, knowing that if he stops now, he'll lose everything he's invested. And just as his last stone is consumed, the mirror erupts in a brilliant flash of light. Meng Hao can only watch, too exhausted to even feel surprised by the strange light. For what feels like an eternity, the mirror continues to pulse with a blinding glow. But when the light finally fades, his eyes widen in absolute disbelief. The ancient wooden sword has been perfectly duplicated. He collapses to the floor, laughing and sobbing at the same time, completely broke but not empty-handed. His entire fortune of 2,000 spirit stones is gone, a price that makes his heart ache. With his new weapons secured, he turns his attention to the mysterious blood-red orb. He wonders just how much stronger this strange treasure could possibly make him. Without another moment's hesitation, he consumes the orb, ready to risk it all. An unimaginable torrent of pure energy floods his system, promising another massive breakthrough. For a moment, the world outside his cave is completely still. But that peace is shattered by a violent surge of energy that erupts from his dwelling like a tidal wave, drenching the entire forest in its wake. Inside, Meng Hao is the eye of the storm, purging the last of his impurities. He hasn't just broken through, he's reached the mid-6th layer of chi condensation. A few days later, he finally stirs, caked in the filth of his transformation. His eyes snap open, burning with a newfound power and clarity. As he rises, the dried impurities crack and fall away from his body, leaving the last remnants of his old self behind on the cold stone floor. He washes away the filth of his transformation, feeling reborn. Looking at his reflection, he sees a body forged anew by incredible power. He realizes the gunk on the floor is every impurity purged from his system. His hair has grown longer, and his entire body feels impossibly light. With his newfound strength, he knows few in the outer sect can challenge him now. And the greatest satisfaction comes from knowing he stole this victory from Wang Tengfei. Elsewhere, a subordinate reports the results of a thorough investigation to his master. He's narrowed the list of suspects down to 2 disciples who were in Black Mountain. Wang Tengfei recognizes one name, Hanzong, but dismisses Meng Hao as a nobody. But his subordinate reminds him that this is the same nobody who defeated Lu Hong. Wang Tengfei's face twists in fury, his hand gripping the armrest of his chair. He raises his hand, his anger still simmering beneath the surface. The camera focuses on a small mole on his wrist. Before his hand clenches into a fist, his rage finally boiling over. He vows to find the one who stole his inheritance and tear them to pieces. With a furious command, he dismisses his subordinate from the room. The man scrambles away, leaving his master to his dark thoughts. Wang Tengfei reveals he has a way to find the thief, even if it hurts his own cultivation. He will reverse the formation he used on the python to track the stolen energy. With a single gesture, a glowing array forms around him, the hunt officially begun. A quiet sky hangs over the sect's mountains. But in his dreams, Meng Hao is falling through an endless sea of clouds, a long, terrifying plunge into the unknown. His eyes snap open, his heart pounding in his chest. He finds himself back in his bed, wondering if the whole ordeal was just a nightmare. Outside, Li Fugi mourns his friend's supposed death, burning offerings for his ghost, until a familiar hand smacks him on the head, startling him into thinking he's seen a real ghost. His fear turns to overwhelming relief as he realizes his only friend is alive and well. But his relief turns to pure awe when he learns Meng Hao has reached the 6th layer of qi condensation. Meng Hao humbly reminds him there's still a long way to go, keeping the dangerous truth of his breakthrough a secret. He tests his new wind-walking technique, floating just above the ground, a skill he's only just beginning to master. He lands a bit unsteadily, still getting used to the feeling. Though Li Fugi is amazed, Meng Hao knows his control is still clumsy. Next, he calls upon one of his swords to test his offensive power. It slices cleanly through a nearby tree, a testament to his newfound strength. He then leaps onto the blade, realizing a new incantation has appeared in his mind. A deeper understanding of the wind-walking technique flows through him. He forms a complex hand seal, channeling his spiritual energy. A surge of power gathers between his palms, ready to be unleashed. And with that, he takes to the sky, soaring through the forest on his blade. He realizes this new power is connected to the strange dream he had that very morning. Li Fugi can only stare in awe, vowing to follow his incredible friend from now on. He then tells Meng Hao about the Sect promotion trial, urging him to sign up. The news gives Meng Hao pause, a new path suddenly opening before him. His friend explains that the trial was meant for Wang Tengfei, but now Meng Hao has a chance to challenge him. The thought of stealing his rival's spot is tempting, but he knows his rapid growth could attract unwanted attention. For now, he decides to focus on their business, asking who dared to steal from them. Elsewhere, Wang Tengfei's tracking technique takes a toll as he confirms Hanzong's presence in the mountain. But he senses another, fainter presence, an oppressive energy he can't quite identify. He wonders if someone powerful interfered, the only explanation for his tracking technique being so easily severed. Over 20 days later, other disciples gossip about the upcoming Sect trial, complaining that few have signed up. They lament the sect's decline, recalling a time when the trial was a grand adventure instead of a simple duel. Meanwhile, Li Fugui celebrates their booming business, while Meng Hao quietly meditates nearby. Our boy reflects on his earnings, having duplicated nearly 100 swords and painstakingly disguised each one. But his success is cut short by a sudden, chilling premonition of danger. His attention is drawn to a yellow talisman worn by a figure approaching from the woods. The man is Hanzong, the second strongest in the outer sect, who has come with a summons from Elder Shengguan Xu. Meng Hao's mind races, wondering if the elder saw something suspicious during the fight in Black Mountain. He's brought before a grand pavilion, where a voice calls him inside and dismisses his powerful escort. Meng Hao offers a respectful greeting, his mind racing to understand the reason for this summons. But the elder responds with a sudden, aggressive flick of his wrist, sending a silver needle shooting through the air with incredible speed. It draws a single drop of blood, a test to see if he's hiding any secrets. Finding nothing, the elder demands Meng Hao hand over his storage pouch for inspection. He examines the pouch, his expression turning to one of mild confusion. Meng Hao feigns innocence, knowing he'd already given his most valuable items to Li Fugui for safekeeping. The elder then questions his rapid growth, and Meng Hao quickly credits senior sister Xu and another powerful backer. Just then, a disciple reports that a search of his cave dwelling turned up nothing suspicious. With no evidence to go on, the elder can only stare, his suspicions unconfirmed. Meng Hao can only stand there, a bead of sweat betraying his calm facade. With a final wave of his hand, the elder dismisses the other disciple as well. And so, Meng Hao makes the long walk back, his mind still reeling from the interrogation. But back in the pavilion, the elder is left alone with his thoughts. And the single drop of blood he took from Meng Hao, his eyes snap open in sudden, violent realization. Meanwhile, Meng Hao races through the forest, a sense of urgency pushing him forward. He's greeted by a frantic Li Fugui who is clearly worried sick. His friend quickly returns the storage pouch containing all his real treasures. Meng Hao explains that they suspect him, sending his friend into a full-blown panic. With no time to explain, Meng Hao grabs his friend, his face a mask of pure panic. He leaps onto his sword, screaming that Elder Shengguan Xu is coming for them. And sure enough, the furious elder is right on their tail, closing the distance fast. He now knows the blood sample was teeming with demonic energy, a sign of hundreds of consumed cores. The only question is how a mere newcomer could have possibly acquired so many. Elsewhere, Other disciples go about their day, completely unaware of the chaos about to unfold, until Meng Hao and his friend come soaring through the narrow street on a flying sword, followed moments later by the elder, whose sheer speed sends everyone flying. The onlookers can only stare in disbelief, certain that Meng Hao has just signed his own death warrant. But Meng Hao knows he can't keep this up. His spiritual energy already running dangerously low. Li Fugui offers to sacrifice himself, but Meng Hao knows the elder would crush him without a second thought. With no other options, he declares they have only one place left to go. He sprints up a massive flight of stairs, dragging his friend along with him. Elder Shangguan Xiu watches from below, realizing the boy's desperate destination. Meng Hao bursts onto a massive platform, shouting for all to hear. He raises his hand and officially declares his entry into the inner sect qualification trial. Just as the furious elder arrives, Meng Hao calmly repeats his intention to sign up. Shangguan Xiu realizes the boy has cleverly hidden himself in plain sight, but sees it as a dead end. But another elder intervenes, ordering Meng Hao to stay put until the trial begins in 2 days. The new elder then looks closer, stunned to realize this newcomer has already reached the 6th layer. The elder instructs him to sign the register and wait by a pillar, unable to leave until the trial begins. Shangguan Xiu realizes this isn't the first time Grand Elder Ouyang has protected the boy. Meng Hao gives a subtle, taunting gesture, knowing he's safe for now. The elder's face contorts with rage, seeing the boy's blatant defiance. But with his hands tied by the rules, he can only turn and walk away. He leaves Meng Hao to his temporary victory, a storm brewing on the horizon. Meng Hao stands firm, knowing there's no turning back, while Li Fugui sobs about having signed up as well. He knows that once the trial is over, Shangguan Xiu will have countless ways to end him. His only path to survival is to win the single available spot in the inner sect. And nearby, Wang Tengfei senses his rival's presence, believing their confrontation is a matter of fate. The registration list for the trial grows, with Li Fugui and Hanzong adding their names. Hanzong warns him that the elder's revenge will come before the trial even begins. The powerful disciple sits in quiet meditation, his warning hanging in the air. While Wang Tengfei remains perfectly calm, Li Fugui can only sob, terrified of what's to come. And soon, even more names are added to the growing list of challengers. Each new arrival looks more confident and dangerous than the last. The list of participants continues to swell, turning the trial into a major event. More powerful disciples join the fray, each one a potential threat. Meng Hao realizes this is a setup, suspecting the elder has stacked the deck against him. 2 days later, a massive crowd gathers, buzzing with excitement for the unexpected showdown. Grand Elder Ouyang raises a single finger, declaring that the time has come. He unleashes a wave of brilliant green energy, signaling the start of the trial. He lays out the rules. No withdrawal is permitted, and the first match will be 1 against 8. With a single command, he calls upon the very earth to rise, and the ground itself begins to tremble and shift, forming a massive circular arena for the battle. The newly formed stage stands ready, surrounded by the expectant crowd. With a grim expression, the elder officially declares the first match has begun. A single foot steps forward onto the cold stone of the arena. It's Wang Tengfei who enters the ring with the unwavering confidence of a champion. The first challenger, number 8, can only sweat, knowing he's drawn the worst possible opponent. Faced with Wang Tengfei's overwhelming power, he immediately declares his surrender. He offers his best wishes and bows out, while a certain elder watches with clear annoyance. The Grand Elder declares Wang Tengfei the winner and announces the second match. Hanzong steps onto the stage, his expression grim and his sword already drawn. Li Fugui panics, but Meng Hao advises him to simply surrender the moment he enters the ring. With a reluctant push, Li Fugui is sent stumbling into the arena. He raises his hand, ready to forfeit before the fight can even begin. But Hanzong lunges forward, not giving him a chance to speak. A brutal strike cuts him off mid-sentence, the cold steel already at his throat. With a flick of his wrist, Hanzong sends Li Fugui flying from the arena. Meng Hao catches his friend, who can only scream his surrender. He realizes the attack was meant to be lethal, a clear message. He knows this is the work of the vengeful elder Shangguan Xiu. Another disciple steps forward, confirming the elder's orders and marking them both for death. He reflects that even his arrogant rival, Wang Tengfei, wouldn't stoop to such a low. The crowd whispers, certain that Meng Hao has sealed his own fate by angering 2 of the sect's most powerful figures. In the next match, another disciple quickly surrenders to Hanzong, clearly part of the elder's plan. Finally, the last match of the round is called, pitting Meng Hao against a burly, axe-wielding disciple. His opponent immediately unleashes a powerful technique, his body growing to a monstrous size. But Meng Hao simply turns his back on the giant, a gesture of pure contempt. He walks away without even a glance, as if the fight is already over. The blatant disrespect sends a wave of fury across the elder's face. Meng Hao looks down, his gaze fixed on the man who orchestrated this entire farce. The axe-wielding disciple brings his weapon down with a furious roar. But Meng Hao simply summons a single sword and gives a quiet command. The blade detonates, creating a powerful shield that stops the attack cold. The elder scoffs, revealing his pawn is a fifth-layer cultivator who came prepared for this fight. But our boy reveals he has a defensive treasure of his own, a gift he's been saving. And with a single gesture, he summons an entire arsenal of blades ready to end this quickly. With a single word, he gives the final command. The disciple is instantly engulfed in a storm of exploding steel. But a single blade finds its mark, ending the fight in an instant. As his opponent falls, Meng Hao's gaze remains fixed and cold. The furious elder grabs his arm, his eyes promising a painful future. But for now, all he can do is burn with silent, impotent rage. The next match begins, but Wang Tengfei's opponent surrenders without a fight. Meng Hao finally understands the setup. It's him and his friend against everyone else. Unfazed, the Grand Elder moves the trial forward, calling for the next match. And this time, it's Meng Hao's name that echoes across the arena. His opponent is Hanzong, the second strongest disciple in the outer sect. He declares that Meng Hao must pay the price for disrespecting Elder Shangguan. Meng Hao feigns innocence, explaining his initial naivety about the ways of immortal sects.
He continues, revealing he's learned the truth. The Reliance sect is in decline with no money and no resources.
He points out that even common pills are enough to cause bloodshed, a fact the elders simply ignore. Hanzong agrees, explaining that in this sect, life and death are a matter of fate, not fairness. But Meng Hao's words take a sharp turn, whispering that in any other sect, Shangguan would be a nobody. The insult sends Hanzong into a rage, who lunges forward with a furious cry. He unleashes a storm of silver needles, a deadly technique meant to end the fight quickly. But Meng Hao dodges with ease, the projectiles harmlessly striking the stone floor. Hanzong then unleashes a new technique, sending two glowing flags flying forward. The magical banners unfurl in midair and begin to circle around Meng Hao, trapping him in place. But he remains calm, deciding to test the flags with a technique of his own. He summons a massive fire serpent, sending it roaring towards his opponent. Hanzong, however, simply stomps his foot onto the stone floor. The very ground cracks and rises at his command, forming a massive stone golem to defend him. The two powerful techniques rush towards each other. As the soulless eyes of the golem meet the serpent's fiery gaze, the serpent collides with the golem in a massive, fiery explosion. But Hanzong scoffs, dismissing the attack as a mere bluff. He unleashes his true power, trapping Meng Hao between two spectral banners, from which emerge two ghostly figures, their faces hidden by red masks. The spectral beings tower over our boy, their presence chilling the very air. The crowd recognizes the technique as one of Elder Shangguan's strongest arts. They realize the flags themselves are a gift, a powerful treasure from the Elder. And high above, the Elder watches the battle with a cold, calculating gaze. His mind flashes back to an earlier interrogation, demanding every detail of the chase. They recount how the beasts of Black Mountain ignored Meng Hao, attacking only his pursuers. The Elder realizes this isn't a demonic art, but a supreme treasure. But Meng Hao is unfazed by the poison mist, even considering it a move he could try. With a single command, he prepares to scatter the ghostly figures. He leaps into the air, unleashing a wave of power that tears them apart. The spectral beings are sent flying, their attack completely nullified. Meng Hao calmly raises a finger, asking if it's finally his turn to attack. He reminds his opponent of his reputation, summoning a familiar circle of flying swords. Hanzong grits his teeth in frustration and pulls out a powerful talisman. But he's facing a literal storm of steel, an overwhelming show of force. He slaps the talisman, activating its power in a desperate last stand. A golden shield erupts around him, a last line of defense against the coming storm. But the sheer force of the explosions begins to shatter the barrier, engulfing him in a blinding, chaotic blast. Meng Hao watches calmly as the dust begins to settle. The crowd can't believe it, wondering who would waste so many priceless swords on a single attack. But from the smoke, Hanzong emerges, leaping into the air for a counterattack. He declares that in this sect, failure is not an option, only survival or death. With a final, desperate lunge, he brings his own blades down upon his foe. But a shadowy figure appears behind him, ending the fight with a single decisive blow. Meng Hao lands softly, his opponent's fate already sealed. He stands over his defeated opponent, noting that his fate was already sealed. The crowd can only stare in shock, realizing Meng Hao has just killed the second strongest disciple. But from the sidelines, Wang Tengfei watches with a cold, calculating intensity. A sudden realization dawns on him. Hanzong was never the one who stole his inheritance. As Meng Hao drags the body away, leaving a grim trail across the arena floor, Li Fugi rushes to his side, worried about his friend's condition. But Meng Hao knows the Black Mountain incident gives him the perfect cover to use his pills openly. The Grand Elder looks on, impressed by the boy's natural talent and hidden fortune. But he knows that against a prodigy like Wang Tengfei, Meng Hao's journey might end here. He's torn, wanting to intervene but knowing he can't show favoritism in front of the entire sect. Elder Shengguan Shu can't believe his pawn was defeated, wondering what secrets Meng Hao is hiding. High above the chaos of the arena, the Grand Elder looks down, his thoughts unreadable. He admits he'd underestimated the boy, who possesses great fortune despite his ordinary talent. But he knows the outcome of this trial was decided long ago. Wang Tengfei notes the Grand Elder's favoritism, realizing Hanzong was too weak to be the real thief. He briefly considers Meng Hao but dismisses the idea, certain the true culprit is someone else. Though his inheritance was stolen, he's determined to claim his second prize, the inner sect spot. He reaffirms his own genius, viewing this entire sect as a mere stepping stone for his grand plans. And with that, the final match is announced. Meng Hao versus Wang Tengfei for the single spot. Meng Hao steps onto the stage, his expression calm as he faces his greatest rival. The crowd whispers, certain he's just a stepping stone for the legendary Wang Tengfei. Elder Shengguan Shu watches with greedy eyes, worried he'll lose Meng Hao's treasures if the boy dies. But a small group of supporters, led by Li Fugi, cheers wildly for their friend. Wang Tengfei decides the time is right and unleashes a massive tornado with a single gesture. The swirling vortex of wind and debris rushes across the arena floor. But Meng Hao calmly states he's also learned a thing or two about wind techniques. He leaps into the air and sends a blade of pure wind crashing down to meet the attack. The two techniques collide in a massive explosion of spiritual energy. But the blast reveals a hidden danger, a storm of sharp blades hidden within the tornado. Wang Tengfei simply scoffs, unimpressed by the display of power. He mocks the sect's low standards, wondering how Hanzong ever stood a chance. But Meng Hao counters by summoning a storm of flaming swords, a variation of his fire serpent technique. His rival simply sighs, already tired of these petty tricks, and prepares a new art. He unleashes a massive torrent of water and wind that rushes forward to extinguish the flames completely. The Grand Elder looks on in shock, realizing this is a technique from Wang Tengfei's powerful family. With a cold glare, Wang Tengfei unleashes the full force of his attack, intending to end this now. The massive vortex of water spins with incredible force, a testament to his superior power. Meng Hao can only command his flaming swords to form a desperate defense against the overwhelming assault. The flaming blades are instantly extinguished by the overwhelming force of the water. Meng Hao realizes he can't block this attack and is forced to retreat. The vortex slams into the ground, tearing the arena floor apart. Wang Tengfei is momentarily surprised that his opponent managed to dodge. But Meng Hao has already leaped to safety, landing on a newly formed spire of rock. Elder Shengguan Shu watches with greedy eyes, certain of Meng Hao's death and ready to claim his treasures. Wang Tengfei acknowledges his opponent's progress, but declares that the fight ends now. But Meng Hao remembers being crushed by a single finger and knows he's no longer that weak. With a grim resolve, he reaches for his storage pouch, ready to unleash his true ace, and summons a literal storm of steel, a sea of flying swords that fills the sky. The sky darkens under a rain of over 100 blades, an impossible number of swords all under his command. He condenses them into a single massive blade of pure wind and steel. The crowd is stunned, realizing he's burning through demon cores just to fuel this impossible attack. Even the Grand Elder is worried, knowing this is a desperate all-or-nothing gamble. But Wang Tengfei is completely unimpressed, declaring that quantity can never make up for quality. With a final, desperate roar, Meng Hao prepares to unleash his ultimate attack. He swings the massive blade, sending it hurtling across the arena. His rival, however, simply raises a single, dismissive finger. And with a casual gesture, he shatters the tip of the colossal sword with ease. The crowd agrees, seeing Meng Hao as an ant compared to the godlike Wang Tengfei. But his rival's finger continues to press forward, shattering the massive blade. And the entire construct of steel begins to crumble under the immense pressure. From within the storm of swords, a single point of light heralds its complete destruction. Meng Hao can only watch in disbelief as his ultimate attack is torn apart. A final, brilliant flash of red light erupts from the point of impact. But this time, Wang Tengfei's finger is left bleeding from the backlash. The arrogant prodigy stares in disbelief, his perfect record finally broken. Meng Hao stands his ground, vowing to destroy the very finger that once humiliated him. The entire sect erupts in shock, unable to believe that their champion has been wounded. The arrogant prodigy's mind finally connects the dots, his face twisting in pure rage. But Meng Hao plays innocent, questioning if his rival has mistaken the sword for his own. Wang Tengfei declares the sword is his and unleashes a new technique, summoning 2 spectral beasts. But Meng Hao meets the attack head-on, shattering the phantom tiger with a single swing. The sheer force of the blow sends a violent backlash through his own body. Wang Tengfei scoffs at his weakness, declaring him unworthy of such a treasure. Meng Hao accuses him of trying to steal the sword, but his rival simply vows to end him. But our boy has one more trick up his sleeve, asking if this is also the unique treasure. As a second, identical sword materializes in his other hand. Wang Tengfei can only stare, his mind completely shattered by the impossible sight. His rival can only stammer in disbelief, his mind completely unable to process the impossible sight. Meng Hao calmly asks if this second sword is also his unique, one-of-a-kind treasure. He then lunges forward, declaring them a matched pair, his heaven and earth swords. With a flick of his wrist, he sends one blade flying into the ground, and uses it as a launch pad to soar into the sky, meeting his rival in the air. The crowd erupts, stunned to see both disciples flying, a feat that should be far beyond their power. Enraged, Wang Tengfei pulls out his final treasure, a powerful talisman he vows will end this fight. He unleashes its power, but Meng Hao stands firm on his blade, defiantly challenging him to try. The entire sect can only watch as the 2 figures face off high in the sky, and the talisman erupts in a blinding flash of golden light, engulfing everything in its path. Deep within Meng Hao, the blood-red orb pulses at the bottom of his pill lake. It's the source of an ancient, draconic power he's only just beginning to understand. The golden light of the talisman erupts across the arena in a blinding flash. The explosion consumes the sky, leaving the entire sect in stunned silence. A final, devastating blast slams into the ground, sending Wang Tengfei crashing down, defeated and broken. The crowd erupts in disbelief, realizing Meng Hao isn't just winning, he's going for the kill. Meng Hao dives from the sky, his blade aimed to end his rival once and for all. The Grand Elder screams for him to stop, but the blade continues its deadly descent. But a powerful figure appears from nowhere, stopping the fatal blow just inches from its target. The man advises him to stand down, warning him not to push things to the extreme. The entire sect bows in unison, offering a respectful greeting to their sect master. The sect master, He Luohua, declares Meng Hao the winner of the battle. He looks back on his journey, a montage of every struggle and every victory. But in the end, he simply bows, accepting his new station with humility. A faint smile plays on his lips, the look of a man who has seized his own destiny. The sect master's words echo across the arena, cementing his new status as an inner sect disciple. Li Fugi erupts in celebration while the Grand Elder looks on, proud that his protege has finally made it. The elder turns away, knowing the boy has earned his place among the sect's elite. The crowd can only whisper in disbelief, wondering if this newcomer is a true genius in disguise. But far away, in the desolate peaks of Black Mountain, a mysterious ancient being scoffs at the name of the Reliance sect. It knows this place by its true name, the Demon Sealing sect, and is intrigued that a disciple has claimed a demonic inheritance. The entity scoffs at the heavens, vowing that one day it will defy them itself. Its projection has seen something truly fascinating, a new player in a very old game. 7 days later, Meng Hao is being formally inducted into the inner sect, starting with a bow to the Patriarch. He learns that with his new status comes many formalities, but also many privileges. He compliments his guide, noting that the man is far kinder than his stoic appearance suggests. The guide, an inner sect disciple named Chen Dan, is clearly flattered by the praise. He promises Meng Hao a new cave dwelling, one even richer in spiritual energy than the last. His thoughts turn to senior sister Shu, but Chen Dan explains she's still in seclusion, unaware of his success. Meng Hao is impressed, realizing the inner sect disciples are far more decent than those he's left behind. Chen Dan offers some friendly advice, noting Meng Hao's reliance on magical tools and urging him to study. He then chides him for hunting, explaining that cultivators must shed their mortal habits to progress. The advice continues, even down to the proper way to carry his storage pouches. Meng Hao realizes his new guide is a good person, but also an incredibly talkative one. His guide then teases him about senior sister Shu, catching Meng Hao completely off guard. Chen Dan assures him it's normal to have a crush, while Meng Hao desperately tries to change the subject. His guide launches into a detailed explanation of the next cultivation realm, Foundation Establishment. He speaks of a legendary technique that has since been lost, a relic of the sect's former glory. He continues the lesson, explaining the stages of core formation and the legendary nascent soul realm. But he reveals the ultimate goal of all cultivation is to achieve true immortality, a word that leaves Meng Hao speechless. Chen Dan then advises him to look beyond their small nation, a place with thin spiritual energy and few cultivators. He speaks of the southern domain, the true cultivation world, a land of heroes and prodigies. Meng Hao asks if his new senior brother has ambitions of his own, sensing a deeper passion in his words. Chen Dan seems to snap out of his reverie, admitting he got a bit carried away. He then reveals his own dream is to follow in the Patriarch's footsteps and restore the Reliance Sect to its former glory. Meng Hao can't help but laugh, pointing out that his grand speech sounded a bit like a villain's monologue, but he looks at his new guide with a newfound respect, finally seeing him as a true senior brother. Meng Hao explains that for the first time, he feels like he's in a real cultivation sect, thanking his new senior brother. Chen Dan is thrilled, but Meng Hao is already overwhelmed by his endless lectures. Elsewhere, under the light of a full moon, a jade pillar lies shattered on the floor. Wang Tengfei sits alone, his hand still bandaged from his defeat. His mind burns with the image of Meng Hao, the ant who stole his treasure and his destiny. He breaks into a fit of laughter, realizing the years he spent here have all been for nothing. But a sudden crash from outside snaps him out of his despair. Two figures appear, reminding him he's a prodigy from the legendary Wang clan of the southern domain. His true rivals, they explain, are the other geniuses of the great families, not the ants in this remote land. Wang Tengfei can only stammer, his pride completely shattered by the humiliating defeat. But he forces himself to his feet and screams his own name as if trying to remember who he is. One of his clansmen asks him to remember his name, his true identity. He reminds him that he is a prodigy of the Wang family, destined for Foundation establishment. He speaks of his powerful fiancée and a future where Meng Hao will be nothing more than an ant beneath his feet. The words finally sink in, reigniting the fire of his ambition and his hatred. Just then, a commotion breaks out as the disciples spot something impossible in the night sky. A massive flying ship, a symbol of immense wealth and power, has arrived at the Secti, and Wang Tengfei knows his family has finally come to take him home. On the deck, the visitors look down with disdain, calling this place a backwater. But one of them, a long-haired man, has his eyes fixed on a single target, Meng Hao. His companion places a hand on his shoulder, a silent warning not to act. But the man's eyes glow with an immense, terrifying power. A single crushing gaze slams into Meng Hao, who collapses under the sheer spiritual pressure. He falls to the ground as the other disciples panic, thinking the Wang family has come for revenge. The sect master identifies the man as a core formation cultivator, a protector from the Wang family's main branch. The protector offers a condescending farewell before announcing their departure. Meng Hao can only watch as the massive ship vanishes in a flash of light, and he's left with a terrifying new understanding of power and a new target for his ambition, the southern domain. But Meng Hao knows this victory is only temporary. He must grow stronger, or his rival will return to end him. He spends the next 2 weeks recovering, slowly adjusting to his new life as an inner sect disciple. In the sect's archives, he discovers an ancient map, expanding his knowledge of the world beyond their small country. He then receives his first inner sect distribution, including a mid-grade spirit stone that looks strangely familiar. His senior brother explains these new stones are far more valuable than the ones in the outer sect. He also learns that high-grade spirit stones are so rare that they're considered a priceless myth in their land. A horrifying realization dawns on Meng Hao. He didn't just spend a fortune. He squandered 2,000 of those mythical stones. The shock is so great that he has to make a hasty retreat, claiming his injuries are acting up again. Sometime later, he's assigned his first official duty, overseeing the outer sect pill distribution. From the stage, he sends a wave of spiritual energy down to the eager crowd below, a familiar scene from a new perspective. He offers some words of encouragement, hoping to see another of them join the inner sect one day. With the distribution over, he dismisses the crowd and heads down the stairs. But he's quickly joined by his ever-enthusiastic friend, Li Fugi. Two familiar faces approach, offering gifts and trying to curry favor with the new powerhouse. They bow respectfully as Meng Hao and his friend walk away, the power dynamic completely reversed. Meng Hao realizes this was his friend's doing, who proudly admits he's been handling some discreet matters. He warns Li Fugi not to push his luck and offers him Wang Tengfei's old cave dwelling to focus on cultivation. But his friend is more excited about showing off, running away with a promise to cultivate while he does. Meng Hao continues on his way, his new life in the inner sect officially underway. And with Li Fugi now running the business, they've successfully monopolized the entire pill market. One day, as he walks the familiar mountain paths, he recalls a strange conversation about trading for his mysterious mirror. But his thoughts are interrupted by the sight of familiar silver hair. He turns to find a figure he hasn't seen in some time. It's senior sister Shu, and he quickly offers a respectful greeting. She congratulates him on his promotion, noting he never used the protective jade slip she gave him. Meng Hao simply smiles, explaining he didn't have time to use it before he'd already won. His confident reply leaves her looking at him with a thoughtful, unreadable expression. Seizing the opportunity, he presents her with another rare beauty pill he acquired. She looks at the gift, her silence leaving him to wonder if she'll accept. But she declines, claiming she's tired from her seclusion and turns to leave. Meng Hao can only watch as she walks away down the familiar path. But after a few steps, she suddenly stops in her tracks, revealing she knows the first beauty pill wasn't one he simply traded for. With that, she disappears into the woods, leaving Meng Hao to ponder her words. A small smile plays on his lips, realizing his powerful backer is far more observant than he gave her credit for. Sometime later, he's deep in meditation, surrounded by a strange green energy. Suddenly, a flickering green flame appears on the cave wall before him. The flames coalesce into a series of glowing characters, a message from an unknown source. And high in the sect's main pavilion, a new chapter in his journey is about to begin. Meng Hao, his guide, and senior sister Shu are summoned before the sect master. He instructs them to pay their respects to the statue of the sect's founder. As he bows, Meng Hao notes the Patriarch looks more like a fierce warrior than a refined immortal. The sect master then begins to reveal a long-held secret about the sect's glorious past. He explains their former power was tied to a single legendary text, the Tai Ling scripture. The name is familiar to Meng Hao, but he doesn't yet grasp its true importance. The scripture is one of the 3 great sutras of the southern domain, a path to flawless cultivation. He reveals the Patriarch only possessed the first volume, and this was the true prize Wang Tengfei was after. Meng Hao realizes that by taking his rival's spot, he may have inadvertently cut off his access to this priceless treasure. And with that thought, a new fire is lit in his eyes, knowing that this opportunity is now his for the taking. But the sect master reveals the scripture was never recorded, and that the Patriarch never truly died. The revelation sends a shockwave through the 3 disciples. He explains that 400 years ago, the Patriarch was at the end of his life, and chose to enter a deep seclusion to sever his spirit and be reborn. Before he did, he left a decree. Every century, 10 jades formed from his own blood would appear. Chosen disciples would then take these jades into his seclusion ground to try and sense his scattered will. With enough luck and destiny, they could potentially inherit the legendary Tai Ling scripture. Chen Dan asks the obvious question, in 400 years has anyone ever succeeded? The sectmaster explains that something went wrong 2 centuries ago, but 5 years ago, 3 of the jades finally reappeared. Meng Hao realizes that by winning the trial, he didn't just defeat his rival, he stole his destiny. The sect master explains that with only 3 jades, only 3 disciples can enter the Patriarch's domain. He then sends the priceless artifacts flying towards them, and Meng Hao catches his in his hand. He tells them that whether they gain the scripture or not is now a matter of their own fortune. With that, the eyes of the Patriarch's statue begin to glow with an immense power, and a swirling blue portal opens on the floor before them, a gateway to the seclusion grounds. The sect master instructs them to step inside and seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Without hesitation, the 3 disciples leap into the unknown, and the portal snaps shut behind them, sealing them within the Patriarch's domain. Left alone, the sect master can only wonder if any of them will succeed, knowing their fate is now out of his hands. He laments the sect's decline, knowing that without a strong successor, they are doomed. He pins all his hopes on these 3, vowing to make the successful one the next sect leader. Meng Hao finds himself in a strange, disorienting darkness. He stands in a vast underground world, a starless sky hanging over a city of shadows. Chen Dan explains they are in the sect's Catacombs, a place filled with secrets he's privy to. Meng Hao notices a thick mist that seems to drain the world of all color, but his senior brother quickly stops him, warning that the fog is a dangerous, unstable formation. They agree to split up, each seeking one of the 3 enlightenment spots with their jade tokens. Chendan holds his own token, its green light cutting through the oppressive darkness. With a final word of encouragement, he chooses his path and speeds off into the gloom. Senior Sister Shu chooses her own path, offering a final word of caution. Meng Hao watches her disappear into the mist, her jade token leaving a faint trail of light. Left alone, he examines his own token, preparing to inject his spiritual energy. But the moment he does, a terrifying presence erupts from the ground below. Skeletal hands burst from the mist, grabbing at him with a desperate, chilling force. He can only look on in horror, a cold sweat beating on his brow. Before him materializes the furious, spectral face of the Patriarch himself.